Hello, we hope you had a good weekend. Welcome to our Monday evening newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us begin with the headlines. More details unveiled regarding President Park Geun-hye's trip to Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya. She plans to share the story of Korea's successful rise from colonization, war, and poverty to global power, while also touching on North Korea issues. North Korea continues to ignore clear-cut urgent matters like its unyielding nuclear ambition and disregard for its people's livelihoods, making it easy for Seoul to say no to Pyongyang's latest request for inter-Korean military talks. Former Oxy Korea CEO GeunHye faces questioning by prosecutors for his potential involvement in the deadly toxic humidifier sterilizer scandal gripping the nation. President Park Geun-hye is set to fly over to 3 African countries this week. South Korea's foreign minister says the visits will focus on strengthening both trade and diplomatic ties, as well as issues related to North Korea. Kwon Jang-ho has the tentative itinerary.
Considered a final frontier of vast untapped opportunity and resources, Africa has been receiving growing interest from world powers. Obama and Xi Jinping made state visits last year, and now South Korea's President Park is following suit. She'll first arrive in Ethiopia before making her way to Uganda and finally arriving in Kenya. She will also be the first Korean president to speak at the African Union, dubbed the African UN. She'll be looking to highlight and share the success story of Korea's development from a third world country to a leading economic player in the world.
African nations are very much aware of the economic and social struggles that Korea endured, such as colonization, war, and poverty. They have expressed that Korea is seen as a benchmark for development.
Another issue that will be covered on these state visits will be North Korea. All 3 countries have had diplomatic relations with the regime in the past. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni in particular had a close relationship at the beginning of his presidency, making 3 visits to Pyongyang in the 80s to meet with Kim Il-sung. But relations have since cooled, with Museveni becoming the first foreign head of state to visit President Park after she took office in 2013.
The issues of peace and unification on the Korean peninsula and the recent UN Security Council Resolution 2270 require help and cooperation from these countries. So far, they have been very accommodating.
After these visits, President Park will be making her way straight to France as she looks to continue expanding South Korea's influence on the international stage through summit diplomacy. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister KyoAhn is on his way to Istanbul for the inaugural World Humanitarian Summit. He is expected to convey the South Korean government's stance on gender equality and human rights issues. Organized by UN Chief Ban Ki-moon, some 5,000 participants, including heads of state, diplomats, and aid workers, will attend the event. During the 2-day summit, they'll discuss ongoing international humanitarian issues. Hwang is scheduled to meet with UN Chief Ban for talks on various domestic and international issues while in Turkey. South Korea has rejected the North's latest offer to hold inter-Korean military talks. Seoul reiterated its stance that steps towards dismantling the regime's nuclear weapons program must come first. Kwon So-hwa tells us more.
Seoul's defense ministry again rejected North Korea's offer for military dialogue, expressing regret that Pyongyang's offer for talks failed to include any mention of South Korea's continued calls for denuclearization.
North Korea must first take steps towards denuclearization if it truly wants peace on the peninsula. That is the message we conveyed to the North.
The response was made through a military hotline Monday morning after North Korea sent a notification to the South on Saturday, proposing a working-level meeting for military talks at the end of May or early June to ease military tension by building up trust. Seoul's Unification Ministry also criticized the North's call, with the ministry spokesperson stating that exclusion of denuclearization represents false peace.
North Korea's offer is illogical. It ignores the main threat to peace on the Korean peninsula, the nuclear issue, and makes it seem as if the South is responsible for the military tensions.
Pyongyang has made a number of these offers in recent days, which Seoul's Unification Ministry assesses are follow-up measures to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's initial proposal made during the ruling Workers' Party Congress earlier this month. Furthermore, the ministry believes Pyongyang is trying to divide ideologies within South Korea and seeks to weaken sanctions levied by the international community. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea's top three shipbuilders laid out their restructuring plans over the weekend, prompting some to tilt their heads and debate over the chosen measures. According to our Hwang, they do agree on one thing, that Korea must pull out all the stops to preserve its dominance in building advanced vessels. Take a look.
To what extent should Korea's ailing industries be downsized? That's the question that hangs over the government's corporate restructuring drive, especially in shipbuilding, a once golden sector that's been struggling to stay afloat in the midst of slowing global demand and low oil prices.
The argument is that they need to only keep the operations optimal in size and strip back all the other parts that are considered oversupplied.
After the nation's three largest shipbuilders, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Samsung Heavy Industries, submitted their restructuring plans to creditors over the weekend, some experts have called for tougher measures. Others argue that the industry has room to revive itself and that the plans that already include layoffs and multi-billion-dollar asset sales have to focus on riding out the current slump to maintain a competitive edge against Chinese rivals.
The strength in Korean shipbuilders lie in high value-added ships like liquefied natural gas carriers and large container carriers. So it's important for Korea to expand its market presence in that field.
Stiff competition from Chinese shipyards that now dominate the market for simple dry bulk ships and oil tankers has been another leading cause behind the eye-watering losses seen by Korean shipbuilders. Experts say that could be the case for more complex vessels as well if the current corporate restructuring drive pushes for too steep of a cut in the country's production capacity. Hwang, Arirang News.
The first foreign CEO of Oxy Korea has been called in for questioning by Seoul's prosecutors. He is expected to be grilled in the hot seat over possible involvement in the deadly sterilizer scandal. Lee Min-young brings us the latest.
Former Oxy Korea CEO John Lee, now the head of Google Korea, was summoned for questioning on Monday afternoon over the toxic humidifier sterilizer scandal. Lee is the first foreign chief executive called in by prosecutors for questioning about the company's toxic sterilizers, which killed or seriously injured hundreds of people in Korea.
My prayers and condolences goes out to the victims and the family. Okay, my prayers and condolences. Yeah, I'll cooperate with the investigation.
The former CEO, who was at the Korean branch from 2005 to 2010, is expected to be grilled over his involvement, including whether he pushed ahead with sales of the product in question, despite civil complaints regarding its side effects. Prosecutors will also try to ascertain if Lee was aware of the toxicity of PHMG, a toxic compound used in the sterilizer, responsible for numerous deaths over the past 5 years. Lee was the chief executive of Oxy Korea when sales of the company's sterilizers were at peak levels. Another former CEO of Oxy Korea, Gaurav Jain, who was Lee's successor and at helm of the company until 2012, may also be summoned for questioning. With investigations on former foreign chief executives underway and Lee the first to face the scrutiny, prosecutors are now in the process of determining if Oxy's London headquarters will be accountable for any involvement. Meanwhile, investigations on major supermarket chains are also picking up steam. In addition to Lee, prosecutors have summoned 2 employees from Home Plus and another 2 from Lotte Mart, Korea's largest supermarket chains, where sterilizers were sold as private label brands, leading to the deaths of numerous people. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Today marks the 7th anniversary of the death of former South Korean President Roh Moo-hyun. Regardless of their current affiliation, big names in politics were united in making time to visit Roh's hometown in GeunHye to remember the late leader. Shin Se-min takes a look back at his legacy.
It's been 7 years since the former president Roh Moo-hyun has passed. Roh, who prided himself as being a clean politician, committed suicide, jumping off the cliff of a mountain near his retirement home in Pongha village in GeunHye, Gyeongsangnam-do province, some 450 kilometers south of the capital Seoul. He was 62 years old. Marking the anniversary of his passing, rival political parties gathered in Pongha as a move seen not only to remember the late president, but also to promote harmony among a new school of political leaders. Roh Moo-hyun rose up from his impoverished background to become a human rights and labor lawyer. He entered politics in 1988 after being invited by former President Kim Il-sung to join the Democratic Reunification Party, now known as the main opposition Minju Party of Korea. In 2009, a year after he left office, Roh faced public scrutiny over a corruption scandal involving members of his family. The former president was questioned by prosecutors on allegations that he received bribes from a businessman through his wife and other close relatives. While he denied such claims, the former president made a very public apology to the Korean people, expressing regret for garnering such attention and disappointing the nation. The political maverick turned president, who served office from 2003 to 2008, is still remembered to this day by many as an upstanding leader who worked to fight corruption and bolster Korea's fledgling democracy. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Moving on, the percentage price change of Korea's benchmark Kospi has been stagnant for more than a month now. As doubts over returns rise, there are worries the local market could fall into a long-term rut. For details, let's turn to our Kim Hye-sung.
The monthly price change of Korea's Kospi index for May stood at around 2%, the lowest it has been in 23 years. The monthly price change, which is also called stock volatility, indicates the degree of fluctuation, and some investors are calling the phenomenon of the Kospi being stuck between the 1900 and 2000 level box P. Since March, the Kospi moved more than 1% on just 3 trading days. The daily trading volume also dropped 17% year-on-year. Experts cite exporters' weakening competitiveness as the main reason.
Traditional drivers of the local market, electronics, semiconductors, and shipbuilders, have been losing momentum in recent years. New growth industries like cosmetics and biotech are not big enough to replace them, so the Kospi is being weighed down.
External factors such as low oil prices, a possible U.S. rate hike, and the uncertainty over Brexit are also making investors jittery. Amid growing internal and external uncertainties, more investors are looking to equity-linked securities, whose return is determined by the linked stock's price. Hence, investors inject more money when the support line falls to 1900 and pull out money when the resistance line nears 2000, reinforcing the so-called box P phenomenon. As exports remain sluggish and interest rates low, the box P phenomenon is likely to continue for the time being. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Korea's biosimilar drug market is expected to nearly double in size in the coming years thanks to government support and the company's vigorous investment plans. The Korea Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association estimates the volume of the market will grow to $126.7 million by the year 2019, quite a jump from the $67.6 million recorded in 2013. Currently, 12 categories of biosimilar medicine are undergoing clinical trials. Local pharmaceutical firms are hoping to become the next Celltrion, which successfully entered the U.S. market with FDA approval for its Remsima drug, developed to treat patients with autoimmune diseases. The company brings in around $2 billion every year from the American market alone. Now turning to the latest on the hunt for the crashed EgyptAir Flight MS 804, Egyptian government announced a submarine has been deployed to scour the Mediterranean for the plane's data recorders. Hwang gives us the updates.
No signs of survivors. Search and rescue teams have so far recovered debris including suitcases, life vests, seat covers, and even body parts. However, the black box, which could hold the key to ascertaining the cause of the crash of the ill-fated flight MS 804, remains missing. Following a moment of silence to mourn the victims, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi made his first public statement since the crash at a press conference on Sunday local time. He announced the deployment of a submarine in an effort to speed up the recovery of the black box from the plane. Brought in from Egypt's offshore oil industry, the submarine is capable of reaching 3,000 meters below the surface. French investigators also confirmed reports on the same day of multiple smoke detection warnings sent by the plane before it disappeared from radar. With speculation on the cause of the crash ranging from terror to a mechanical error, the Egyptian president urged the media to refrain from jumping to any conclusions.
I wish to take this opportunity to convey to both Egyptian and foreign media that we are considering all scenarios at the moment. Once the findings have been revealed, these findings will be made public to all people.
The plane was en route from Paris to Cairo and 16 kilometers into Egyptian airspace before vanishing from radar around 2:30 a.m. local time last Thursday. Reports confirm the plane made a sudden 90-degree swerve to the left and dropped 7,000 meters in altitude before swerving 60 degrees to the right and finally disappearing. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
We've come to the end of this hour's newscast. As always, thank you for watching.